Welcome to the Beau Show, your destination for news and truth, and the home of faith, family, and freedom. Tulsi Gabbard was born in American Samoa, and you probably know her best as a Democratic Party candidate for president in 2020, even though the debate moderators and the DNC tried their best to shut her out in order to pave the way for Joe Biden. But who is Tulsi Gabbard, and why is she in the news today? Well, Tulsi was born in American Samoa, but moved to Hawaii and began practicing the Hindu faith as a teenager. She worked for an organization that her father founded that supported traditional marriage and values. In 2002, she was elected to the Hawaii House of Representatives when she was just 21 years old and became the youngest member of the House. While serving in the Hawaii State Legislature, she enlisted in the Hawaii Army National Guard in 2003 and deployed for a 12-month tour in Iraq. She trained further in Alabama, becoming a second lieutenant and becoming one of the first women to set foot in a Kuwaiti military facility and the first woman to receive appreciation from the Kuwaiti military. She ascended from captain to major and in 2021, lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserves. In 2012, Gabbard became the first American Samoan to serve in the United States Congress. In 2020, she ran for president in the Democratic primary. And despite great performances in the debates, she never stood a fighting chance because the DNC wanted to push its puppet, Joe Biden. Gabbard has frequently appeared on shows such as Tucker Carlson, providing a much-needed perspective from a sensible Democrat. She's even filled in for him as a host. Most Democrats don't go on conservative networks so that they don't have to face the heat. Most of the time, right and left-leaning networks only want to have guests on that agree with them. And I think that's regressive because you never get a sense of healthy, robust debate. You just hear the echo chamber. But Tulsi's frequency on Fox News prompted many to wonder why she'd give the network so much of her time and what her plans may be. Well, in addition to continuing to serve in the U.S. Army Reserves, Tulsi just made a big announcement. And I'll let you hear it the way she delivered it on Twitter.
I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party that's under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers who are driven by cowardly wokeness, who divide us by racializing every issue and stoking anti-white racism, who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution, who are hostile to people of faith and spirituality, who demonize the police but protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans, who believe in open borders, who weaponize the national security state to go after their political opponents, and above all, who are dragging us ever closer to nuclear war. Now, I believe in a government that's of the people, by the people, and for the people. Unfortunately, today's Democratic Party does not. Instead, it stands for a government that is of, by, and for the powerful elite. Now, I'm calling on my fellow common sense, independent-minded Democrats to join me in leaving the Democratic Party. If you can no longer stomach the direction that the so-called woke Democratic Party ideologues are taking our country, then I invite you to join me.
That was a succinct yet powerful message, all of it true. They say you have only about 60 seconds or less for an elevator pitch, but these days with people's attention spans, it's even less probably. I learned that when I was on this very ideologically liberal show that the first thing that I said was the most important, because in the first 10 seconds, I would be interrupted or be talked over. So just 10 seconds in, we know Tulsi can no longer be a part of a party of elitist warmongers who embrace cowardly wokeness. To hear this coming from someone who has extensive military experience and understands foreign policy is telling. Tulsi is not an ideologue, and I don't think she ever has been. The fact that she worked for her father's organization that supported traditional marriage and another one called Stand Up for America following the 9/11 attacks shows me that she likely has always been a traditional patriot. She endorsed Florida's parental rights and education bill and spoke at CPAC. But when you listen to that announcement she made, she's talking about all of the things that have hijacked the Democratic Party: wokeness, racializing every issue and stoking anti-white racism, hostility towards people of faith, protecting criminals, open borders, using our security agencies to attack political opponents, and above all, she says, dragging us closer to nuclear war. All of these things are very anti-American tenets. I think it was particularly compelling that she talked about racializing everything and fomenting anti-white racism. The reason that that's so compelling is that many liberals do not believe that non-white people can be racist. It's as if it can only go one direction. However, today's Democrats have tried their best to create both white guilt and a general hostility towards Caucasians by direct discrimination. We saw this with critical race theory, the 1619 Project, BLM riots that received no prosecution, statue removals, and other measures. The notion that all whites have privilege has paved the way for a war on skin color. For a non-white American Samoan to say this is quite compelling, because it means that although she is a minority, which the Democrats have always championed, she can objectively see what the Democratic Party has done. Ironically, of course, it elected another rich old white man, and perhaps the most unpopular minority politician across the amber waves of grain, Kamala Harris. And when she talks about how anti-everyman and pro-elitist Democrats have become, well, we've continued to see that happen for a while now, especially as Democrats have co-opted elements of media, big tech, big pharma, and entertainment for their agenda. And in this decision to leave the party, she invites fellow sensible Democrats to do the same. This reminds me a lot of media personality Dave Rubin, who used to be a Democrat, but who said that he never really left the Democratic Party, but they left him. And Rubin is gay, which is interesting because Dems have tried so hard to pander to the gay community and make them lifelong voters based solely upon sexual orientation, cornering that market. Tulsi has started a podcast on her website, and for her very first show, she talks more at length about why she left the Democratic Party. She goes far more in depth about why she even became a Democrat in the first place. As a young woman, she was party unaffiliated, but wanted to help with conservation. So when she ran for the Hawaii House of Representatives, she had to check a box. And she had been inspired by Democrats who opposed the Vietnam War, Martin Luther King Jr., Robert F. Kennedy, and drawn to the idea of an inclusive tent that stood up for the little guy. So for 20 years, she was an independent-minded Democrat. It seems that as a veteran, Gabbard takes perhaps her most strong opposition to Democrats on the issue of the warmongering military-industrial complex. Take a listen.
Now, the pro-war Democratic Party of today has led us to the brink of nuclear war. This party is led by warmongers who are firmly in the grips of the military-industrial complex and don't know or don't care about the cost of war or who pays the price. President Biden and Democratic Party elites have pushed us to the precipice of nuclear war, risking starting World War III and destroying the world as we know it. This is the most urgent and existential threat that we face. Now, I ran for president in 2020 because I knew that this is where we were headed. All the signs were there. I raised this issue every single day during the campaign and on the national debate stage. For those of you who may have come to a town hall or who were watching, I'm sure you noticed. But the politicians and the media completely ignored it. They didn't care then, and they don't care now.
Some of Tulsi's most adamant positions on the debate stage were about foreign policy. And she's right. No one cared. Her opponents, including Joe Biden, didn't care. Neither did the media. But she could see the writing on the wall all along. Sadly, she's not in a position to effect the change needed to prevent a nuclear holocaust anymore. But she says this was inevitable, and Democrats have become warmongers. And I'll add neocons to that group as well. A guy like John Bolton would be in that camp.